One of the things that I do a lot at work is I take CSV data, or comma separated value data, and I generate derived tables in SQL so that I can run on-the-fly reports. So this ID and email CSV payload gets converted into a set of rows here, which becomes a derived table, which I can then use in a select statement in MySQL 8. And then typically what I would do is I would have other sort of inner join things here where I could use input data to then filter down to rows in a particular database. Now, thanks to the magic of multi-cursor functionality in Sublime Text, where I can say here I can start to do multiple rows at one time, converting between these two types of data is really not that challenging, but it's repetitive and it doesn't need to be something I type all the time. So what I wanted to try and do is create a CSV to CTE. CTE is a common table expression transformer in Angular 18. And the idea is I want to be able to take this and come over here into my utility, paste it in, say ignore first row to not include the ID and the email, be able to customize the way this looks. So let's do lowercase and maybe let's call this email address. And you'll see as I scroll down, this has become now my generated common table expression, and I can take this query now and I can paste it into a database runtime and start operating right away. And it worked out really well, I think. One of the beautiful things about Angular in general is that you can use template-driven form fields. So if I wanted to say try this with more data, ID, email, row, company ID, etc., you can see that I have a bunch of form fields here, and maybe we don't want to include all of them in the SQL, so we just have, let's say, ID, email, and role, and you can see I have ID, email, and role here. You can see as I include more, it's dynamically adding them to the common table expression here in the derived SQL. So anyway, Angular 18 just makes this really easy. I guess Angular in general makes this really easy, but I just love the fact that Angular has these template-driven form fields. I've had them forever. They're just a magical thing. If we take a quick look at what's happening under the hood, essentially I have this field settings object, which has field index, column name, example value, include in CTE. And these column names and include in CTE, those are the properties that I'm binding to here in the input and the checkbox, respectively. And if we look at the underlying HTML, what you'll see is I have my @for loop construct here, control flow. I'm just looping over that array. And internally here, I have two ng model bindings, both to the field settings, which is my iteration index. And I'm just mapping to a property within that object, column name, and include in CTE. There's a huge, I'd say massive misconception in the Angular world generally that in order to have dynamic sets of form fields, you actually have to have reactive form fields. That's nonsense. You can use template-driven forms and have a tremendous amount of dynamic functionality, which keeps the markup and the logic super simple. So there we go. I had to create a little small CSV parser for this. You can go and take a look at it. It's not the most flexible thing, but it handles the kind of data that I typically use, which is CSVs that are generated from Google spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, etc. So go ahead and try this out. I have little buttons here for loading different types of sample data, and you can see that everything here is reactive and changes based on your inputs.